when we think about something so good that nothing can top that, the thing that comes to my mind, a couple who has spent a lifetime together, and one of them is taken away either way too soon, or, they actually have spent like 60 or 65 years together, and then one of them dies. There has been mistakes in it. There have been ups and downs, but for those two people, this marriage has been something so good that nothing can top that. But then it has been perfect. And it is just the point of view. For me, something might be perfect. For you, something might not. And
welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective, and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Hey guys, welcome back to Manders Mindset. As always, I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am here with a very special guest. I am here with Birgit Itse, and she is originally from Estonia, now lives in Scotland. She is a story architect. We'll get into what that means. She's also an author, and she writes books in 2 languages, Estonia and English. She's a ghostwriter for multiple books as well. She hosts workshops and talks to people and helps them recreate the stories in their heads. And she also told me when we first got connected how she moved countries within 8 weeks. And I was absolutely fascinated by that. And I am so excited to talk to her today. Thank you so much for joining me.
thank you so much for having me. I'm excited with this episode as well. I think we really connected well in our pre-talk, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun.
Me too. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. So I would love to get started with my first question for you. A little unique question, but what is your hooray for the day?
My hooray for the day. So now that we're recording it, it's the last Sunday of May, and for 10 months now, I live in Aberdeen in Scotland. We've got outdoor poetry event, Poetry in the Park. And every time we've got about 10 poets performing their poems outdoors. It's a lovely gathering, hearing what other people have been up to, the versatility of the performers, the work, and, just overall lovely to be together and share good work.
Okay, that's awesome. And you talked about your book there, I believe, right? Your new book?
Yeah. So I didn't plan to initially. But they kind of saw my stuff online and, you've got a new book out. And I said, yes, but this is in Estonian only. But obviously they said congratulations, and perhaps you should, share a bit of it. So I talked about this island and my experience. So it's the 5th largest island. The literal translation of the name means Women's Island. And I started tour guiding when I was 17, and I spent 27 summers there being a tour guide. Not the whole summers, sometimes it was just a couple of excursions during the summer. But still, I saw the transformation of the island within 27 years. And there was also a transformation in me, just being that insecure teenager, becoming a confident woman on a women's island. So these kind of like 2 stories intertwine and complement each other. So it's a story about the island, but it's also a story about my growth. And, if you can imagine a 17-year-old girl on an island that was closed for civilians for over 50 years because it was a former Soviet military base. And the reason why it was closed was, the main reason was the sea mine storage. And then there were a lot of other military objects on that island as well. And then that 17-year-old blonde girl...
Can I interrupt you a little bit? The sea mine storage, for me and the listeners who don't know what that is, can you...
So to stop ships moving, they're during wars, they put mines underneath the water.
Okay.
And so these are for ships. Some of them were meant for bigger ships. Some of them were meant for smaller ones. They responded differently. Some I contacted due to the noise of the engine, but they mostly weren't visible. If they were visible on the surface, then the wire between the anchor of the mine and the sea mine itself was cut off. So every sea mine also had an anchor that kept it underneath. And the Baltic Sea, if you look for Scandinavia, then there is a Baltic Sea there. Estonia is just a little country, very tiny. Estonian is a language that is spoken only less than 1 million people. But due to the location on the corner, it has been kind of like a place that a lot of countries wanted in the history. So if you're into history, look up for Estonia and you'll find a lot to read. So people came to the island, wanted to know more, and I greeted them on the harbor and said, "Hello, my name is Birgit. I'm your tour guide. Welcome to the island. We'll have a nice tour here." And then they kind of measure you from head to toe and ask, "Are we going to go to the sea mine storage?" And I said, "Yes, we are. Are we going to have a real tour guide there?" And I said, "I am a real tour guide, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed." And then they asked all those provoking questions to test out whether I knew anything about, because, it can't be that a 17-year-old girl knows anything about military stuff, especially more than, just people who've been to the army. So it was really testing my, kind of like mental resilience and how I could stay polite in critical situations. And when we ended up to the sea mine storage and the completion factory where they kind of completed them, and I put those last bits together, show them how it was done, then their skepticism disappeared. And without any argumentation, I had won them over. So that's why I said I had a lot of those moments where I had to be mature. So I grew up on and with that island. And this is the story about me, and as I said, transformation about the island as well. As I said, right now, only in Estonian. Fingers crossed it's going to be translated as well, because I do believe it has, it could be potentially interesting for others as well.
Wow, that's awesome, though. That's awesome that you wrote that book. Now, a typical question I usually start with is asking my guests who they are at the core.
At the core, I'm someone who really, really loves thinking. I can be quiet for days because I'm busy with thinking. And I'm talking about that kind of deep thinking when I'm looking for those hidden layers, meanings behind words, where I'm trying to find the origin, like the etymology of the word, just trying to make sense Also, why we use some words in certain conditions and circumstances. For example, when people are talking about overthinking, what is it exactly what they mean? I don't believe in overthinking. I don't think it exists as such, because for a lot of times in my life, I've kind of struggled when people say that, oh, you're too much of this, you're too much of that. And what it makes us feel is that like we're not enough. So when people tell me that, oh, you're overthinking this, just, take it as it is. Don't go deep. Just, take the top layer and just go with that. Then it feels like it's against my nature. And I've understood that I'm just one of those people who loves thinking, like Usain Bolt loves running, like sopranos are taking high notes because they can and then they enjoy that. Like bodybuilders, they love lifting weights and working out. And that's okay. And the fact that I can't keep up with them doesn't make me less of a person or them too much. It's just we love doing different things. And people who
I love that. I love that. I want to interrupt you real quick to highlight that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you less than, doesn't make them better than. You're just different. I think that's so key.
And
love it.
It's vice versa. The fact that I love thinking more doesn't mean that people who don't love thinking that much are less and I'm better. I'm not. We just love different things. And one of the poems I shared today was that we might have different understandings about the truth, and they could be just very far apart from each other, but it just means that the truth is different, because the truth comes from our personal experiences. Coming back to the overthinking, when people are talking about overthinking, what they might describe is that they are stuck with a thought. And that means that one thought just keeps coming back. There might be a story that they keep resharing to themselves, like, I'm this or I'm that, Overthinking might be, I'm just being too much. I'm being too loud. I'm doing this. Might not be smart enough. So it is doubting in yourself, or, I should be doing this. That kind of like a mental slapping of yourself and being hard on yourself. So you're stuck in one thought. You just keep thinking that. Or the other version is as when you can't make your mind up, as either, should I go to this podcast, or maybe I should not, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. So you just can't decide. You're indecisive. So you just keep thinking about different options. And the third is when people are talking about overthinking, is when they've made the decision for someone else. Let's take this situation. I'm here on this podcast, and, when there was an advertisement that you're looking for guests, and I read the description, and let's say I would have made the decision, I'm not going to apply because I'm not the right fit. So, or she's not going to like me, or she doesn't think that I have nothing to say that is valuable to her listeners. In that case, I would have made the decisions that was yours to decide, Amanda, wouldn't it? The least you can do for another person is to let them say no. To have that conversation, if you're not the right fit this time, maybe, they will recommend you to someone else, and that's okay. But, I don't like when people are making decisions for me. I like to make my own decision. So this is why I think that everyone should have an opportunity to say yes or no, what they want to do. It's not my decision to make whether, Amanda, you want me in your podcast or not. And I'm glad you did.
No, I get that. I get what you're saying. So you would say that overthinking isn't a thing. It is one of these three things. You're either stuck in a thought, you're indecisive, or you're making a decision for somebody else.
Exactly. And when next time when you're being accused of overthinking, then it might be helpful to go in a bit deeper and to actually start thinking, what is it what I'm exactly doing? Am I being indecisive? Am I making the decision for someone else? Or am I just stuck? I need to get unstuck. Or what would help me to get unstuck? What would help me to make the decision? What's going to happen if, that person is going to decide this or that? So if you need to come up with a worst case scenario, do that. But that might help you, to move on from that thought.
I would say, I think sometimes it's even a combination of some of the three or all of the three.
It might be. It might be that, I don't want to, should I go to that podcast? But then, she might not like me. So it's just one is following the other. So they are, close to each other, but they're not the same thing. So,
no, they're not. They're not the same thing, but I would say that you could have both even showing up together. One might follow the other, but you could have both together. Because I thought about myself personally, and this was an instant that I honestly thought I was quote unquote overthinking, but I recently went to Bali, as I told you, and prior to going, I was thinking I was overthinking whether I should go, but I was stuck in the indecisiveness, but I was also stuck in my mom's going to think I'm crazy for going out of the country this last minute. Like, I booked my flight and left 3 days later, but I had both the indecisive, but also the making the decision for her. I don't remember which came first, but they did show up together. You know what I'm saying? So like,
but what if your mom thinks you're crazy? Maybe she thinks how crazy going. What?
That's true. No, that's true. She probably thinks that already.
Yeah, what if she likes that decision?
That's true.
What if she thinks that this is one of the best things that you have done recently? And what if she will praise you for taking that opportunity?
That's true. And instead I was making this decision and assuming.
Yeah, but you wouldn't like if she would think, instead of you, and she would assume that this is the way you should be thinking.
That's true. I wouldn't. So why do you think so many people, because overthinking is such a well-populated term. Like, I hear it so frequently, whether it's social media, whether it's people talking, whether it's blogs, you name it. Like, why do you think that term is so used?
Because there have always been buzzwords. It just goes with, the development of society, of the humankind, that from time to time, there are particular buzzwords that are used, and some words are put on a naughty chair, and when everybody's talking about, then it's kind of like easy to sell your knowledge when you're using the buzzwords. And again, a lot of people might be happy if you just keep things on the shallow level. Like, some people never want to dive into the ocean. And to bring in that metaphor, I'm probably one of them because I'm not a good swimmer. But I do like diving into the meanings of words. So I'm quite happy when it comes to the ocean. I'm quite happy to be on the shore or to be on a boat and admire the surface of the water or just the waves and on a safe distance. But I think that for a lot of people, diving into the ocean of thought is as scary as for me is the idea of, the actual diving.
That just even makes me think also so much about the power of, because diving into the ocean could mean diving into the ocean of thoughts or diving into the actual ocean, which is something I never thought of. Those two floating. Wow. Okay. But no, it's so true that we're all different. What everybody likes and enjoys and wants to experience and feel and do, everybody's different. Like what's for me and what works for me, what helps me, what I enjoy, what I like, etc. You might not be for you, might not be for somebody else. That's why there's so many different facets for everything. Even like I am somebody who's always emphasized the power of moving your body, and I strength train, but maybe that's not strength training. Even if that's walk, I just think there's so much power, even mentally, in physically moving your body. How you want to physically do it, everybody's different,
I'm going to ask you a question. What's your favorite animal? Like when we think about zoos, what's your favorite animal?
What my favorite animal at the zoo?
Yeah.
The giraffe.
So imagine a zoo that is filled only with giraffes, no other animals.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay.
I mean, it might be cool to go once, but that would be the extent.
And this is the thing. The reason why we go to the zoo, the richness of the zoo, is the different species, different animals that might look similar but behave differently. Even this conversation here, we are different, or looks, the life experience, and I think this is what makes this conversation interesting. Because we're able to exchange ideas, we're able to exchange thoughts. If we were to look alike, think alike, our tone of voice would be alike, it wouldn't be as interesting. It would be interesting for a bit. It's like, you watching twins, but then, if it doesn't get anywhere, if it doesn't evolve, it would get boring.
No, I agree. That's even why I said, like, yeah, once I'd go to the giraffe zoo if there was like one specific zoo that just had giraffes once to check it out. Like even when I was in Bali, we went to some monkey park that had just all monkeys. But it's not something I'd want to do regularly. But I am somebody who I'll do anything once. I'll do anything once.
But I think, the although it's another buzzword like diversity right now, but I really think that the diversity of thoughts and thinking and things we like doing is something we could, value and appreciate more. And when someone's different, then it shouldn't be taken as a personal offense, but rather an opportunity to find out more about life and world and things, and okay, that might be interesting. Just have that curiosity and keep that willingness to explore, whether it's your own thought, someone else's thought, how someone else's thought compared to yours. I like saying that you can't offend someone who doesn't feel offended. In English, there's, the way it is the offense is taken, not given. So if at some point you do feel offended, then it's good to remember that you have taken that offense.
That's true. I agree with that. One of my best friends says he doesn't believe in the word. Again, it's just all the power of words.
Yeah, but recently regarding my latest book, because it's a memoir. So, writing something personal about your life brings up so much, and you have to face a life differently and, just see it from another perspective. And I sent it out to beta readers, and one of the beta readers was my former manager, and not a line manager, but from a higher level, from my journalist times. And he sent me a feedback like, right now, your book starts like any other book written about that island, but you know how to write. Start right away, rewrite the introduction. You know how to do that. And he was seriously concerned that he had offended me. And I said, no, you did not. I'm very, very grateful for that, because I want a good book as well. And if you tell me that the beginning is boring, then I know that people won't read further. And I want them to read further. And I told him the same thing. You can't offend anyone who doesn't feel offended.
I love that. You can't offend anyone who doesn't feel offended. So I want to backtrack a little bit, but you told me about how you had moved countries within 8 weeks. And I would love if you could elaborate a little bit on that, because that is so, I'm an adventurous soul. So things like that, like spark a fire in me.
So that was almost 4.5 years ago. I lived in Estonia. I was 38 years of age. I had a son who was about 10 years old or 11. And I had every single thing to be happy. I had a boyfriend who I thought was my soulmate, because we could literally read each other's minds. Like, we went grocery shopping and we hadn't discussed what we're going to eat. And I was thinking of, chicken and pasta. And then he said, I was thinking that perhaps we should do chicken and pasta. I was like, are you joking? And then sometimes we went even together, and I was thinking of what to cook for dinner. And he called me, listen, I'm in the shop. I was thinking of, doing this and that for dinner. I was like, I was just about to call you and ask if you bring that, please. So we were on the same frequency quite a lot. So I really thought that, he's my soulmate. I've got a good child in my family. My friends were all well. I had a big 4-bedroom house, 3 hectares of land. Most of my mortgage was paid. I had a decent car to drive around, a job that paid me more than an average salary. So you name it, I had everything to be happy. And I wasn't. I felt like something's missing from my life. And I was just crying my heart out to my best friend. And mind you, she's an A-list celebrity in Estonia, a TV and a radio host, and we know each other from uni. And I was just crying and sobbing, and I had asked for 15 minutes from her, and we had already talked for over an hour. And I started feeling guilty, so that was like a self-pity trap. And then she asked me questions. Birgit, you've told me for years how you want to go and live in Scotland. You've told me for years how you want to write books. You've told me over an hour, and this is not the only hour we've talked about it, how you help everyone else in your family, among your friends, to fulfill their dreams, how you help them, and nobody's helping you. You're 38. When are you going to live your own life? When are you going to go and pursue your own dreams? If now, when? Or if not now, when? And my sobs, my tears were like cut off, because no one had ever asked those questions from me. it wasn't her telling me what to do. It was her asking me questions that I had to find answers. And then I said, okay, tell me what I need to do. And she said, listen, I've got a mindset coach. You call her now. If it doesn't work out, it's not a fit, we'll think further. But you need to change what you do. You can't change others. And
I love that. You need to change what you do. You can't change others.
Exactly. And then I had known that before, but I had never put it into the perspective of my family and friends. I had put it into the perspective of, romantic relationship, that you can't change your partner, but it's actually the same thing about your friends and family. So 8 weeks later, I had sold my home, I had sold my car, I had left my job. My boyfriend said that he doesn't want to come with me. So I said, okay, I'm going. I took my child as well, and we moved to a city I had never been before. I had never been to Aberdeen, Scotland before. Closest was 1 hour drive. I didn't know anyone here. I didn't have a job waiting for me. I just came to live my life and live my dream.
Wow. And now where did you and your son go? How did you get a place?
So we had 8 houses all over Scotland picked out that we liked. And then we started writing about things we liked about each house. And the house in Aberdeen got 8 things. The house on the southwest of Scotland, there is a small town called Troon, got 7. So we are in the northeast, but we could have ended up being on the southwest.
Okay. And how did you make all of this work in such a short period of time?
Because I had made the decision that I want to go.
So you did whatever it took to make it work.
Exactly. I had no plan B.
Okay. I love that. No plan B.
If you have a plan, if you focus too much on your plan B is what you're going to get.
I never heard that before, but okay. Wow. I'm a strong believer in what you focus on becoming your reality.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about before about even the power of our thoughts, whether we say it or we don't say it, Now, can you tell us a little bit about what a story architect is and what that means to you?
Before I expand on this, I'd like everyone to think what a story architect means to them, and what that person can do. We've talked about it, and I'm just filling the time here, so let listeners to think about. We've talked about it with you, man. So obviously for you, it would be an easy thing to answer. So hopefully everyone has, few thoughts what a story architect can be. I came to the story architect because what I do as a ghostwriter, I'm writing stories. What I do in my writing workshops, I'm working mainly with people who not necessarily like writing, but they need it because of their work or their business. And what I do as a speaker is there are thoughts about ourselves, our creativity, our writing, and it's not enough just telling people this is how it is. Even as a ghostwriter, I'm asking those questions and, gently directing people to see another perspective or another side of the story. So it wouldn't be just, emotional dump, but kind of help them process their actions and see, points what led to certain situations. So I understood that I work with stories in people's heads, whether the stories about themselves, words that have been used to describe them, or their own thoughts about the creativity and writing ability. And like an architect creates something out of an idea or a word or a description, I help people recreate the stories, or create, if they don't have, about their life, their creativity, their writing ability. And like we talked about, overthinking. Also, words that have been used to describe them. Like, I've been called stubborn for all my life, and it used to stop me. It used to hold me back. Most likely partly because of how it was said. When people say stubborn, it usually has a negative energy behind that. And what it was I thought that wanting something very much, it was not necessarily a good thing. So I became a people pleaser. I wanted to be more like others. I wanted to please my mom so she wouldn't be sad, because when I was being stubborn, then I did something that I really wanted to do. And it wasn't until I started my personal development journey, which led me to move to Scotland, then it was like weeks in, and people started saying, "Oh, you're so persistent. You're so dedicated. You're so focused. You know what you want, and, this is so inspiring." And at first it was really, really uncomfortable, because I wasn't sure what what did they mean by that. Just these are new words in my self-image. And then I was already in Scotland when it hit me. Wait a minute, they're talking about the same personal trait, but they're using different words to describe it. People who call me stubborn and people who call me persistent and dedicating are noticing the same thing about me. And that was a huge light bulb moment. That was the moment when I was like, I can actually change how I feel and what I think a particular word means to me. So now when people call me stubborn, I just smile and say, thank you very much. Because they've noticed something in me that has brought a lot of good into my life.
I love how you have a real of people telling you were stubborn and people also telling you how you were persistent. Everybody talks about how words are so powerful, and you hear from everybody in different types of lingo, but that is a great example of, and it's because the traits are similar that they're noticing. Wow. Mind blown over here at that.
That inspired me to write a book, The Alphabet of Life.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the alphabet of life?
Yeah, so it is behind me. So you can see the cover. It has all the different words. So I took the English alphabet and I wrote about it, particular words. It has pictures as well. And then there is a list of meaningful words to me. And then people can write meaningful words with that letter to them. And then there is an exercise, like it can be taken as a creativity exercise or a journal prompt, or they can just take any of those words that kind of like feel like it's bothering them or it's not making them feel good, and look for alternatives. Do you have your favorite letter? Just take any letter from the English alphabet. F. Funny enough, I had that open, but I was like, oh, not maybe the right word. See, I was making the decision for you, but then you pick the same thing. So F as in fear. Fears are fabulous for teaching us about being fierce and fully accepting the opportunities ahead. Have you faced fear of missing out, fear of loving yourself, or even fear of being successful? Fears are afraid of knowledge. Learn and become fierce in facing your fears. Find your fierceness.
And now there's a journal prompt.
The journal prompt is finding out about.
Okay. Wow, that's so cool.
And every prompt, had a letter F just now. If you notice that the prompt started with the letter F. So every prompt includes a word that starts with that letter as well. It's not always that the prompt starts with that word, but every prompt includes a word that has the letter at the beginning.
That's so cool. And now that was inspired by you noticing people calling you stubborn and persistent?
All other words. So after, the stubborn and persistent, I started thinking, okay, when people are calling me, that I'm thinking too much. And when they say that I'm too loud or, just talk too much or, all those things that I've been saying in the past, too intense. So what is it that they really mean, and how it talks about their perception? Once again, like a line from the poem that I shared today was, for people who I'm too much couldn't even handle less. Too much. It's just their perception. So their level. Again, we're going back. Sopranos are not taking too high notes. They're just taking high notes. I'm not too intense. I'm just intense. And I'm intense compared to someone else's levels. Their perception, their experience, their, own intenseness. It's just different.
I love that. It's just different. And I think that's so important and key for so many people to realize, because everybody's different, and that doesn't make anybody better than you, less than you, or vice versa, just because you're different.
And again, it's the same thing with stories. When people are thinking about writing their memoirs or their life stories, so the difference between memoir and a biography is that biographies start from the day you were born and, it's until that date right now. Whereas a memoir is a particular life story. So my memoir, my travel memoir, was about my tour guiding experience. One of my customers, I can talk about her because she asked me to write the foreword for her book as well. So Simone Gizondia wrote about her going through stroke and divorce at the same time. So it's her life experience going through the stroke and divorce. And there is nothing about her childhood as such. So when people are thinking about writing their memoirs, then the biggest fear a lot of people have is that, perhaps my story is so different that it is not relatable. Or, who even cares because, it's just my story. But actually these stories, as unique as they are also universal. So you don't have to experience stroke or divorce to find similar thoughts, to find this story relatable, because you might experience similar emotions. You might have similar struggles, or you just kind of like those light bulb moments. So I encourage everyone to, if you have considered writing about your memoir, or even if you haven't, it is exceptionally healing process. Even if you don't want to publish it, still write it down. If there are things in your life that make you cry, make you angry, write about them. It doesn't have to be publishing level writing. Just write it out. It will help you process your thoughts, process your emotions, and perhaps, look at it from a different angle. If writing in the first person is too painful and you literally just can't, write the word because the tears are falling on your computer keyboard, write it in the third person, like it had happened to someone else, he or she or they. It will be easier. I've had things in my life where I had to write them first in the third person because writing in the first person was just it pulled up so many emotions. And even in my travel memoir, I've got things that I can't read out loud because I'm tearing up, but I've written it in a first person. So yeah, I put my heart into that and I don't regret that because only by showing you on those pages, it comes across as something that is emotionally relatable to others, even if they've never been to those places, even if they've never experienced anything like that, but they can relate to the emotion.
Even if you haven't gone through that exact experience. One of my business mentors mentions all the time about how we all feel the same feelings just through different events and experiences. So there's no saying that just because you haven't experienced what some author or they have a podcast, you might relate to something they say. I emphasize. And I love how you mentioned the things that make you cry or the things that make you angry are the things that you should write about. Whether you have something that is so therapeutic, and I don't think enough people utilize it. And, I also, my same business mentor strongly emphasizes the difference between pen and paper or pencil and paper, whatever you want to use, and writing on a keyboard or writing on your phone.
It does, because there is a direct connection between the paper and your brain, the hand, because we're not seeing with our eyes, we're seeing with our brain. We're not hearing with our ears, we're hearing with our brain. So when we are seeing our words on paper, then it's just goes straight to our brain. And what it also does, it slows down our thinking. So people who say that, I can't do, just can't handwrite because my thoughts are too fast and I can't, just keep up with them. It's you who should start writing by hand to slow down your thinking, to pay attention of what you're thinking, because you've got so many great thoughts. And if you're not paying attention to those great thoughts, you're just wasting. You're not being very efficient. The other thing about writing, you talked about the business mentor. What makes me, I don't want to say sad, but somewhat helpless is the current era where there's a lot of robotic, generic, anonymous content online. People are afraid to show themselves in their business. But when we talk about social media strategy, it's like, show behind the scenes, be relatable. And what is out there? AI generated content. So much of it. And people are just kind of like even more scanning through. And I think it is really, really important to keep alive writing like a human, to keep alive that human connection through words. I'm absolutely passionate about that, because if we don't do that, then it might lead to people not appreciating and eventually not understanding that human in that writing, because they're so used to scanning robotic content, and emotions are becoming something that is unnecessary And we're just, looking for those keywords and buzzwords. So we're right now, what is a really big thing, I've been part of it because I delivered a workshop in the European Chatbots and Generative AI conference. What is, in the conversation is about humanizing chatbots, humanizing generative AI. But what is happening on the user level is people are turning the content and creation and reading habits while more closer to robotic. And it is, our critical thinking. And I'm so grateful that you're doing this podcast and helping people to really think. So keep writing like a human. Keep that human connection alive, because right now, people are craving for that human connection more than ever. It is your opportunity to stand out. If you're struggling, find workshops that teach writing like a human. There are plenty of those. If you can't find any, message me, contact me. I've got some, and I can lead you to other people as well, because through the Dark Angels Writers Network, there are workshops that are in the US as well. So perhaps closer to your time zone. Although it's nice to travel into the future for a bit. And we're talking about, just coming to the UK time. So you can say that, hey, I was in the UK evening, now I'm back in the daytime. And just connect with people, understand what they might want when they want to read something. Write, put out the content you would like to read. Don't just, focus on the algorithms. They are constantly changing. Focus on your true customers, people.
I agree. And it's AI content. The world is crazy. But,
AI is it's a great tool. But if we think about the gold fever, you in the US should be very familiar with the gold fever. What happened during the gold fever? A lot of people were running in one direction. A lot of them didn't have any clue how to use the shovel, how to read the map, how to get the gold out of, just how to work with the tools, how to read the landscape, because it wasn't the usual landscape. They just knew that there was gold and they wanted to get rich fast. And a lot of people disappointed because they never found the gold. And this is exactly what is happening. It's a tool. You need to know how to use that. Prompting is also a tool. If you don't know what makes prompting effective, then it is just learning that kind of like hard skills. But you need to train AI to write like you. If you don't know how it is to write like you, and you can't train AI, then you don't know the prompting. Prompting is the next step. Find out who you are in your writing. What is your voice in your writing? And then go for the prompting. And then you can edit whatever it produces you to sound like you. And then you can humanize that writing and put it out, and people are able to connect with you.
What great advice. Thank you. Now, you mentioned something along the lines of how it's almost emotionless. I believe the social media aspect you were talking about. Now, my mentor has also touched upon, but he was like, how many of us do we follow accounts that announce certain people that will post something and you won't even read the whole caption, but you'll like it? I have people I've done that for, and because you're just endlessly scrolling, and it gets away from the purpose.
There is also the purpose that, just based on the algorithms, you should engage before you're posting. So it is, you might not genuinely like what they're writing, but you're engaging and you're commenting, at least 7 words. So the social media platform looks at, he or she is just not here for the posting, but, is an active user. So a lot of people are just doing, because this is how their post gets more views. And I've tested it out. It is so. If I post something without prior engagement with other posts, my post is not seen as much as the ones when, I'm taking 15 minutes to go and start scrolling and see what other people in my network have posted, and then comment a bit, and then I post. This is how it's felt.
This is so wild to me. The algorithm is a whole.
Yeah, they obviously, if you've got like a bigger audience and you've got thousands or tens and hundreds of thousands of followers, then you don't have to do that. Then you even don't have to reply to your own comment or like people, who comment you. But when you starting out, this is how it works. This is how you get to there are people who are sharing honestly that they post every day on LinkedIn. They spend every day an hour on LinkedIn commenting and, just liking posts and then adding new contacts, sending out messages, never really contacting, but just, spreading their network so they would look more relevant. And when these people talking about being authentic on social media, then I don't think that they're really talking about authenticity. I think they're being very intentional. So even to use the word authentic in the context when you teach people, this is what you need to do for your post to be seen, this is not authentic. This is being intentional, and it is okay to be intentional because this is what being in business is all about. Authentic. When we think about authenticity, who are the most authentic when it comes to age? Toddlers, children, young children. Well, there is a reason why they're not running businesses. Due to the emotional regulation. Some people use the word authenticity so they could do an emotional dump on social media. And often I see on online networking groups, well, nobody's buying from me. I'm just going to close down. I don't know what to do. I've got this and this and this. I've got this and this and this, and all that kind of a rant. And then people post a link, lovely. Let's see. Oh, I just purchased this. So that kind of like I call them pity posts. I might come across as rude, but this is how I see that. Like, is this really the story that you want to attach to your business? I think you should be more intentional. Ask questions. Do you want to be petted, or do you want to be, someone who's inspired? And you can use that trick only a couple of times. What you're going to do then? So being intentional is a smart thing to do. And it's strategic. Businesses are supposed to be strategic. It's just not, you can't just play by the ear all the time. Well, you can, and a lot of people do, but just doesn't go very well quite often. So, yeah, I would encourage you to be intentional, to be strategic. If these are the rules that we need to play, then pick your battles. Is this the battle you want to have? Or maybe perhaps it's more energy efficient to use it elsewhere. I'm just bringing an example with my most recent book. So there was an online voting when it comes to the book cover. And there were 3 versions. And although this one wasn't my favorite, I was okay with that because the audience loved it the most. But I was fighting with the subtitle. So the subtitle is Wildly Beautiful. they wanted to include the word dangerous in the subtitle. I was against it because based on the feedback from the audience, it wasn't something that would encourage them to visit the island or purchase the book. I didn't want to have the railway in the subtitle. And so this is not about it. This is not what the book is about. So the subtitle need to be what the book is about. So that was my battle. And I got the subtitle I wanted. So it's the same. Do you want to fight against the social media algorithms, or are you just going to accept, okay, this is how it is. If I want my post to be seen, if I want to help more people, these are the rules I need to play. And you can choose another battle, whatever it is.
Okay. You mentioned there the energy. Like, is it worth your energy? What do you want to expend your energy on? We only have so much of it, and what do you want to use your energy for? And I think so much of life comes down to that. What you're thinking about, what you're actually doing, like what do you want to use your energy for? Whether it's even whether it's the battles or whether it's just even spending your time in general, you know?
Yeah, my friends kind of tease me that I'm very time and cost efficient. So that means, I'm mostly very organized, and they say, like, aren't you losing your creativity when, there is no room for being spontaneous? And I said, the reason I have time to be spontaneous and creativity is because I'm organized. Because then there's a window for creativity and to be spontaneous. Otherwise, I'm just, constantly putting out fires. And in my nature, I'm not a firefighter. So energy, when we talk about it comes time to time that we have to use. So being time efficient means that I have to choose where and how I use my energy. And if I'm making smart decisions, that means that I might be able to prevent mistakes that are costly and perhaps earn more money. I'm time and cost efficient. So it is not only about earning more, but also preventing costly lessons.
So that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to transition a little bit. You mentioned when we first connected about how you believe that everybody is perfect. Could elaborate on how and why you believe that?
Oh, okay. My favorite word. So it's one of those words that kind of bothered me. It was put on a naughty chair. And it made me feel very uncomfortable because when I was 17 years of age, I was talking to one of the most famous Estonian poets. And I said the same thing, like, nobody's perfect. And then she looked at me and said, Birgit, perfection is the only way of existence. And I can't remember much else, but she explained that we are perfect because we've got every single thing that, we need to be alive. If something crucial would be missing, then we wouldn't be alive. And I remember, just being 17 and just going out and saying, I'm perfect, you're perfect, everybody's perfect. So I was kind of like, oh my. And I didn't have, anything else but her words. And obviously, like a couple of months later, I kind of shut down because I didn't have anything else to prove it with. Little did I know that Aristotle has written a lot about that. So when I was already, when I lived in Scotland, then, being bilingual means that to really understand the meaning of the word, you sometimes have to go deeper and to understand the cultural context where and how it is used. So I started chasing down, where does this word come from? And I ended up reading his work where he said that the word perfectionism was or is used in 3 different ways. And to prevent misunderstandings in the future, Aristotle recommended choosing one of those meanings. And the meanings Aristotle wrote down was, perfect can be something that is completed, so there is nothing to add. Perfect can be something that is so good that nothing can top that. And perfect can be something that fills its purpose. So that was a huge eureka moment for me, because I understood that the conflict comes from the fact that right now we are using all those 3 meanings and we expect, them to be in that one thing. But if you think, in Estonia and here as well, so during Christmas, there are gingerbread cookies. And when I was little and when my son was younger, and amongst all my family, and as much as I've said, in many, many families, gingerbread cookie dough never, or most of it never gets into the oven. It never becomes gingerbread cookie because it's eaten as a dough. So if the purpose of gingerbread cookies is to bring joy, and eating a dough brings joy, it has felt its purpose. But it wasn't completed. The cookies were not completed. We can argue whether the dough was so good that nothing else, no other treat can top that, but it filled its purpose. When we talk about marathon, that it was completed. It might include mistakes. It might have other marathons that can top that. It might have not filled its purpose, but it was completed. So based on Aristotle, something can be perfect without having all those 3 in it. And why I'm saying this is that language is a living organism. The meanings of words have changed over time. And like the word girl, in the 13th century in Old English, it was used as a gender-neutral word. Well, like we use guys now, or folks in Scotland. Deadline used to mean, in the 19th century, it used to mean the borderline when you escape from the prison where the bullets didn't catch you anymore. So when you crossed the deadline, you had a chance to stay alive. So
I never knew that.
That's the thing. The meaning of words has changed in many, many times. And every year, dictionaries are updated. Merriam-Webster dictionary, it was over 600 words that were added or deleted last year. And that's a lot. Annually, and that is a lot of words. And we're talking about English language. And that happens every year. And that comes based on how us users use the language. And why I say everyone's perfect is the way I see perfection is not flawlessness. So when people are talking about perfectionism and something to be perfect, they are using it often in a sense of things need to be flawless. But when we're talking about perfect battery, and perfect battery is something that is working, then it has a plus and a minus. If you take away the minus, it's not a battery. It's not to mention it's a perfect battery. So it has opposite. Would you agree that nature is perfect?
Yeah.
So nature has opposite. Days, nights, mornings, evenings. It has very hot weather. It has very cold weather. It has tornadoes. It has drought. It has everything. Torrential rains, sunny beach moments. A lot of opposite. Something else nature has is constant change. No morning is the same. No day is the same. No rainfall is the same. If you look at the ocean or the river or even the small lake, it's constantly changing. So if we think of nature as something that is perfect, it has opposites in it, and there is constant change. Us humans have opposites in us, and we're constantly changing. So we're perfect, we're part of nature. And another exercise, I'm not sure if I did that with you, but if I did, you can just pretend that I didn't. Draw a plus on a paper. If you've got a pen and a paper, draw a plus. If you don't, just use your fingers and draw in the air. Now draw it again without drawing a minus into that. Draw that plus without having a minus in it. So the perfect plus has minus in it. When we see perfection as something very, very positive, then even that positivity has a bit of minus in it. Half of it is minus, something that we associate with negativity.
Wow. We did not do that exercise together. That is such a great representation, like physically, mentally, like all ways that even the best things have some negativity to it. Or some
Yin and yang. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. It has been here for centuries. It's just we've forgotten a lot of things.
That makes
and how do you feel about being perfect now when someone says, "Oh, don't try to be perfect"? No, I'm not trying to. I already am.
I love that. Think or even say, like the phrase, nobody's perfect, because I think so many people think of perfect as flawless. That's what the word, the connotation of this word to them means, And if you think of it like that, it seems more unattainable than if you think about it with the three different things that you mentioned. Completed, so good, or it filled its purpose.
And, just something, when we think about something so good that nothing can top that, the thing that comes to my mind, a couple who has spent a lifetime together, and one of them is taken away either way too soon, or, they actually have spent like 60 or 65 years together, and then one of them dies. There has been mistakes in it. There have been ups and downs. But for those two people, this marriage has been something so good that nothing can top that. But then it has been perfect. And it is just the point of view. For me, something might be perfect. For you, something might not. And again, that's okay, because we're coming from different parts of the world with different life experience. Once again, it's amazing to be different, to have that variety, to have that diversity, because this is what makes living interesting. Not just being alive, but living. There's a difference between those things. Being alive and living.
Oof, so true. They're not the same. But I love how you mentioned, like, everybody's got a different point of view on things. And that's what makes the world so amazing. Like, I love it.
And if you disagree with everything I've said and shared, I'm quite happy to hear about your ideas and your perspectives. Please don't hesitate to send me a message either on LinkedIn or Facebook or an email. I'm very, very curious to hear about your thoughts. Or also, if something was life-changing, just let me know.
I have a question for you before we wrap up. Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
I've heard, yes.
Okay. So now he's got a podcast as well. He's a motivational speaker, an author, and I don't know if he ends all his podcasts, but he ends a lot of his podcasts. He's 2 different segments, and I started incorporating them onto my podcast. And the first segment is called The Many Sides to Us. Number 1, what is one word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you?
Curious.
Number 2, what is one word that someone who knows you extremely well?
It's not a one word, but people who know me extremely well say I'm force of nature.
What is one word you would use to describe yourself?
A thinker.
Number 4, what is one word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you?
Intimidating.
Number 5, what is one word you're embodying right now?
I'd go with deep.
Then the second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
Yeah. If you want to be free, then I gotta be me. Not the me they should assume or expect me to be, but the me I think I should be.
Number 2, what is the worst advice you've heard or received?
Slow down.
Why is that the worst?
Because we don't need to slow down. Sometimes I need to calm down. But when I slow down with things, then I get frustrated. And then I start making mistakes. So I need to calm down to become more effective.
Okay, so you don't think slowing down helps you calm down?
Slow motion. No, try to do dance steps in slow motion. Like when you've got one of your legs up and then you're just trying to do that step, it's extremely difficult. But if you calm down, relax your shoulders, and then start doing the step, then you hit the spot. Slowing down, it doesn't work for me. Might work for someone else, not for me.
Okay. Number 3, what is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Pleasing others. Trying to be more like others because I believe that others are happy. So if I'm more like them, then I'm happy too.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be, as if someone were reading it, what would you want it to say?
I think my books that would inspire people to think more and to have more curiosity about life and living and other people around. Yeah, I'd say those would be my books and probably memories from the talks that I've given. some takeaways people have heard me saying.
Okay. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it?
The one law would be, if you don't have anything nice to say, then just stay quiet.
Why would that be the law?
Nice law. And I'm talking about genuinely nice and kind, not that kind of like we're pretending to be kind, because people can understand if it's a fake kindness or not. I'm talking about genuine kindness. Or the other thing would be that I would make the law that people would have to say what they really mean, would make communication so much easier. We don't have just all those hidden meanings, silent meanings behind the words. They're very, very confusing.
And so why would those be the law? Why would you have to say only nice things? Why is that?
Nice things are, I think if we focus on increasing the good, then there will be more good. And, if it's a law that we need to be kind and nice and genuinely nice and kind, then perhaps even myself, I would pause more often before I say things, because sometimes we're tired, sometimes we're afraid, and then we tend to say things we don't mean, and they're not particularly nice things. And if we're, nice and kind about our ambitions, then perhaps those ambitions would, those dreams would be pursued in a more human way, not so much of this is what I want and I don't care what others are suffering or whatever. It sounds very
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Miss World. It sounds very Miss World, but all the situation that is happening right now in many parts of the world, where lives are lost in someone else's game, and the rest of the world feels pretty helpless around that. I believe if there's more kindness and nice things to be said, then there is less room for brutality and awful things to happen. I might be naive, probably I am, but I'm okay with that.
Increasing the good, though, I think that is so important in all areas. Now, I've got another question for you. Can you share with us help you be successful in your life?
Think what you want and why you want that, and just write about it, because we've got over 70,000 thoughts in our mind just every single day. And to take time for your thoughts, way of thinking, helps you understand yourself better. And no one else knows better than you what success means to you. What success might be for someone else, might not speak to you at all. When I was reading Gavin Hall's book Aspire, then I found out that the success comes from a Latin word succeder, which means kind of like break through, coming through the soil. So imagine that kind of a seed that is sprouting and just coming through the soil to the surface. So what that coming to the surface through the soil could mean to you. Success is not the destination. It is just one part of the process, one part of the journey that you have. And for me, that lifted a huge weight off of my shoulders when I understood that being successful is not that I'm reaching a destination, that I'm successful when I'm, reaching to that point, but I'm successful when I'm working towards my dreams. Every day I'm doing something, and that doing something might also be resting, because the nature rests as well. So I'm allowed and expected to rest. And sometimes this is what you need for ideas to come back to you. Just stay quiet, think, right? Take time for yourself. This is also part of you working toward the dream.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Now, I have one final question for you. So you very into nature, water. It just catches my eye. Always has. I'm saying that for my research on you. And when I was looking through your Instagram, I noticed so many pretty views and landscapes. And I loved how you had very, I want to call them intriguing, thought-provoking captions on them. And on one of them said, safe choices don't get you closer where you want to go, but further away from it. Was there an experience or certain situation that made you realize this?
Yeah, every piece of writing on my Instagram is based on something that has either happened with me, to me, or I've kind of changed the perspective about those things. And the safe choices is something that I've experienced a lot when I've thought, okay, let's do this, but something kind of like tickles you and you still want to do it. And then you think, yeah, but then you go to the common sense and practicality and all that kind of stuff. And then you're still, yes, but what if? And I'm not an adrenaline junkie at all. But when it comes to life decisions, let's say admitting someone that you actually love them, although it is the scariest thing to do, and it would be safe to pretend that, oh yeah, it's fine. And what you actually want is spend more time with that person. But when you pretend that, oh, we're just cool, we're just friends, and no, it really doesn't bother me that you're doing this or that, and you're guarding your heart because it's safe, and risking to admit, listen, I really like being in your company. I like these things about you. Yes, there are things that scare me, but I would like to see where it goes. That is a scary thing to do. It's a risk that you're going to take. But this is getting closer or further away. Obviously, this is why it's a risk. But the chances of getting closer is only when you take a risk. For me, the dream of being a full-time writer included a risk of leaving my family behind, selling my home, and coming to live on a rental place in a country I didn't know much about. I had only visited it twice before that. But it has brought me closer to my dream of being a full-time writer. I've got 4 solo books published since then. So we like playing safe because it's what our brains tell us to do.
It's true. Did you have any books published before you left Estonia?
I had only a small poetry book that I did for my friends and family back in 2006. And I had some of the articles published in like collaborative books, but not the solo book. My first solo book, which is a bilingual happiness book, was published only 5 months ago. So it was May 2020. So as we're recording this, I've got 2 days until my book anniversary.
That's so exciting.
So yeah, it was 28th of May 2020 that it came out in print. I lived in Scotland, but it was published by the Estonian publisher. So yeah, that was when I was here. And mind you, it was lockdown then.
Did you move during the lockdown?
No, I didn't move during the lockdown. I moved to Scotland on the 30th of December 2019, and the lockdown in Scotland started in mid-March. Slightly before.
Okay.
But
Right before.
But to publish right before, but the book was published during lockdown. So I was here in Scotland. My publisher was in Estonia. So people in Estonia got my book before the rest of the world. So it was delivered to me on the 4th of June.
Well, that is awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really. And now, where can the listeners find you and connect with you?
The easiest way would be my website, which is www.birgit, BIRGIT itse.com. And I've got all my socials there. And you can send me an email. You can explore my online shop.
Okay, sounds good. And I will link that in the show notes for you guys to click directly. And do you have any final words to share with the audience? Anything you want to leave them with?
Stay curious. Be inspired by your own life. It is very, very inspirational.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And thank you guys for tuning in. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.